An angel looked upon your photo, not a king, not a prophet, not a famous preacher, just you. In your ordinary moment, in your weakness, in your silence. And heaven paused. You may think you are unnoticed. You may believe your prayers are too small, your tears too quiet, your faith too fragile. But in the spirit realm, nothing about you is insignificant. When that angel saw your image, something began to move. Not because you are perfect, not because you are powerful, but because the hand of God has been resting on your life from the beginnings. Many people see only your present condition. They see your struggle. They see your delay. They see your unanswered prayers. But heaven sees your tomorrow. Heaven sees the finished picture while you are still walking through the unfinished stories. There are moments in history when God moves in ways that surprise even the angels. Not because God does not know the future, but because His love chooses to exceed expectation. What is coming into your life will not follow natural order. It will not follow statistics. It will not follow human prediction. Some of you have been in a long night, a season of waiting, a season of believing without seeing. But when the angel saw your photo, it was not a picture of defeat. It was a picture of destiny. It was a picture of a testimony that would shake the faith of many. God specializes in reversal. When people say it is over, He says it is beginning. When circumstances say no, He whispers yes. When doors close, He prepares a greater entrance. Do not underestimate what is happening behind the curtain of the visible world. While you are praying, heaven is arranging. While you are crying, heaven is preparing. While you are doubting, heaven is still working. Your life is not random. Your struggle is not wasted. Your waiting is not punishment. Something is aligning. Something is shifting. Something is coming that will make you look back and say, only God could have done this. The angel saw your photo, and what is about to unfold will not just change your situation. It will change your understanding of who God is. And when it happens, you will realize that the delay was preparation, the pain was positioning, and the silence was divine strategy. So lift your eyes, strengthen your heart, guard your faith. Because what is coming is bigger than your fear, greater than your past, and stronger than your present storm. Heaven has already seen your victories. Many people believe that heaven only watches the powerful. They imagine that divine attention is reserved for kings, prophets, leaders, and those whose names are written in history books. But this belief quietly creates distance between the heart of God and the life of an ordinary person. It whispers a lie that unless you are extraordinary in the eyes of society, you are invisible in the eyes of eternity. Yet the truth is far more comforting and far more powerful. Heaven is not fascinated by status. Heaven is attentive to sincerity. Heaven is not moved by applause. Heaven is moved by faith. You may wake up in a small room, go to a regular job, face familiar struggles, and carry silent battles that no one applauds. You may feel that your life is repetitive, unnoticed, and overshadowed by louder stories around you. But divine attention does not function like human attention. Humans are drawn to noise. Heaven is drawn to need. Humans are impressed by display. Heaven is moved by trust. While the world scrolls past your picture without stopping, the spiritual realm does not scroll. It observes. It listens. It waits. There is something sacred about ordinary life. In the rhythm of daily responsibilities, in the quiet endurance of hardship, in the small acts of obedience that nobody celebrates, something eternal is being formed. You may think nothing significant is happening when you pray alone in your rooms, when you choose integrity at work, when you forgive someone who hurt you, or when you keep believing despite delays. But these are the moments that capture divine attention. Not because they are dramatic, but because they are authentic. Heaven sees the unseen tears. It sees the restraint when you could have reacted in anger. It sees the discipline when you could have chosen compromise. It sees the generosity when you had little to give. It sees the hope you cling to when circumstances argue against it. What feels small to you is not small in the spiritual dimension. In fact, the quiet choices of ordinary people often carry more eternal weight than the public achievements of the celebrated. Sometimes we misunderstand greatness. We think greatness is loud, visible, and recognized. But in the divine economy, greatness is often hidden. It grows underground before it ever appears above the surface. Just like a seed buried in soil, your faith in an ordinary season may look like nothing to the human eye. Yet beneath the surface, roots are forming. Strength is developing. Character is expanding. Heaven is attentive not only to the fruit, but to the formation. The danger is not that heaven ignores ordinary lives. The danger is that ordinary people believe they are ignored. When you believe you are unseen, you may stop praying. When you believe you are unnoticed, you may stop expecting. When you believe your life is insignificant, you may lower your faith. But the moment you realize that heaven is attentive to your everyday existence, something changes inside you. Your prayer becomes bold. Your endurance becomes purposeful. Your waiting becomes hopeful. Consider how often the greatest transformations begin quietly. A decision made in private, a promise whispered in weakness, a prayer spoken through tears. These moments rarely trend on social platforms. They are not broadcast, yet they are registered in eternity. The spiritual realm does not measure value by volume. It measures value by faith. You may ask, if heaven is attentive, why does the struggle continue? Why does the delay persist? Attention does not always mean immediate intervention. Sometimes attention means preparation. Sometimes it means timing. Sometimes it means protection from outcomes you are not yet ready to handle. When you feel unseen because nothing changes quickly, you may misunderstand the nature of divine watchfulness. Being seen does not mean being rushed. It means being guided. In your ordinary routines, there are invisible conversations happening. Doors that could have closed remain open. Dangers that could have reached you are restrained. Opportunities that seem accidental are arranged. You may attribute these moments to coincidence, but heaven's attention often works quietly, weaving protection and possibility into your daily life. Ordinary does not mean unimportant. Ordinary means accessible. It means real. It means human. Heaven is deeply invested in real lives, not polished performances. The world rewards appearance. Heaven responds to authenticity. When you bring your fears honestly, your doubts sincerely, your gratitude humbly, you are not presenting weakness. You are presenting truth. And truth attracts divine engagement. There is also comfort in knowing that you do not need to become someone else to be seen. You do not need a larger platform, a louder voice, or a more impressive story. Your current life, with all its imperfections and limitations, is fully visible. The kitchen table conversations, the commute to work, the silent prayers before sleep, the internal battles you fight alone, none of these are overlooked. When you understand that heaven is attentive to ordinary lives, you begin to live differently. You begin to treat your daily actions as sacred. You begin to believe that your small steps matter. You begin to expect that even in routine, something eternal is unfolding. You no longer wait for a dramatic sign to feel valued. You recognize that being seen by heaven is already enough to sustain you. This awareness transforms discouragement into endurance. It turns invisibility into intimacy. It replaces comparison with confidence. You stop measuring your life by external applause and start measuring it by internal alignment. You may still desire breakthroughs. You may still pray for change. But you do so with the assurance that you are not shouting into emptiness. You are speaking to a realm that listens carefully. In the stillness of an ordinary day, when nothing seems extraordinary, something extraordinary is happening. You are being watched with intention, not judged harshly, not evaluated coldly, but observed with purpose. Your life is part of a larger story unfolding beyond your understanding. What feels repetitive may be preparation. What feels unnoticed may be foundational. Heaven is attentive not because you are famous, but because you are beloved. Not because you are flawless, but because you are faithful in ways you do not even recognize. The ordinary rhythm of your life is not background noise in eternity. It is a living testimony in progress, quietly shaping a future that you cannot yet see and strengthening a destiny that has already been acknowledged in the unseen realms. Before you ever find the courage to tell your story, it is already known. Before you shape the words, before you gather the confidence, before you even understand what is happening in your own life, there is an awareness in the spiritual realm that precedes your explanations. You may struggle to articulate your pain, your confusion, your hopes, or your calling, but nothing about your journey is hidden or surprising. The chapters you are still trying to interpret have already been observed in full. Many people live with the quiet frustration of feeling misunderstood. They wish someone could truly see what they have endured, what they have sacrificed, what they have carried in silence. You may have moments where you think, if only they knew what I've been through. But even when human understanding is incomplete, divine awareness is not. Your story is seen before it is spoken, not in fragments, but in totality. The beginning, the middle, and the outcome are already visible from a perspective higher than your present experience. There is comfort in this truth, but there is also responsibility. If your story is already seen, then your current season is not accidental. The struggle you face today is not random chaos. It is part of a narrative that is being shaped with intention. You may feel like you are improvising your way through life, reacting to circumstances as they come, but there is a larger storyline unfolding that connects your setbacks, your victories, your delays, and your breakthroughs. Often we believe that significance begins when we speak. We think that our testimony only has value once it is shared publicly. But the value of your story does not begin with your voice. It begins with your existence. Even in silence, your life is communicating something powerful. Your perseverance speaks. Your endurance speaks. Your faith during uncertainty speaks. Long before you ever stand to declare what you have survived, your journey has already been witnessed. There are moments when you feel alone in your confusion. You question why certain doors closed. You wonder why certain relationships ended. You replay conversations in your mind and try to decode hidden meanings. In those seasons, it can feel like you are walking through a fog without direction. Yet from a higher perspective, the path is clear. What feels like chaos to you is part of a coordinated design. What feels like delay may be protection. What feels like loss may be redirection. When your story is seen before it is spoken, it means your tears are not wasted. Even the nights when you cried without words, when you could not form a prayer, when you simply sat in silence overwhelmed by emotion, those moments were not invisible. You may not have had language for your pain, but it was already understood. You may not have known how to explain your fear, but it was already recognized. You may not have had clarity about your calling, but it was already known. This truth removes the pressure to perform. You do not need to exaggerate your story to make it meaningful. You do not need to dramatize your struggle to gain attention. The authenticity of your experience is enough. The unseen realm does not require polished narratives. It responds to sincerity. It acknowledges the raw, unfiltered reality of your life. There is also a powerful implication here. If your story is already seen, then your future is not uncertain in the way you think. It may be uncertain to you, but it is not uncertain in the grand designs. The twists and turns ahead are not surprises to the one who sees the end from the beginning. This does not eliminate challenges, but it reframes them. You are not stumbling through darkness without guidance. You are walking through chapters that have already been read in full. Sometimes you hesitate to speak because you are afraid of how people will respond. You worry about judgments. You fear misunderstanding. You question whether your story is even important enough to share. But when you realize it has already been seen and validated beyond human opinion, you gain confidence. You are no longer seeking approval. You are simply revealing what has already been acknowledged. Your story includes mistakes. It includes regrets. It includes moments you wish you could rewrite. But even those chapters are not disqualifying. They are part of the larger narrative. These missteps you are ashamed of may become the very foundation of your empathy. The failures you try to hide may become the bridge that connects you to someone else's healing. Nothing is wasted when it is seen with purpose. There is also mystery in this truth. Sometimes what is seen about you is greater than what you see about yourself. You may define your story by your limitations. You may summarize your life by your disappointments. But from a higher perspective, your story is defined by potential, resilience, and destiny. You may see yourself as delayed, but you are being prepared. You may see yourself as overlooked, but you are being positioned. When your story is seen before it is spoken, it means that your identity is not determined by public opinion. It is not shaped by trends or temporary recognitions. It is anchored in something deeper. You are known beyond your current season. You are understood beyond your current confusions. You are valued beyond your current performance. This awareness changes how you walk through life. You no longer rush to explain yourself to everyone. You no longer feel the need to defend every chapter. You trust that what matters most is already clear in a realm beyond human debate. There will come a moment when you will look back and see how the unseen understanding guided you through visible uncertainty. You will recognize that even when you did not know what to say, your story was being shaped. Even when you felt unheard, you were being understood. Even when you thought you were lost in the middle of confusion, you were never outside the view of divine awareness. Your story is not waiting to be discovered. It is already known. It is unfolding with intentions. And every chapter you are living right now is part of a testimony that has already been seen in full clarity, even before your lips find the courage to speak it aloud. Human expectation is limited by experience. It is shaped by what we have seen, what we have been told, and what statistics suggest is possible. When people look at their lives, they often calculate their future based on their past. If they have failed before, they expect more failure. If they come from scarcity, they expect limitation. If they have been rejected, they expect more rejection. In this way, expectation becomes a cage. It confines destiny within the borders of logic and history. But destiny does not operate within those borders. Destiny is not drafted by public opinion, family background, economic condition, or academic qualification. It is not controlled by the mistakes you made in your youth or the opportunities you missed last year. Destiny is written beyond human expectations, beyond the narrow predictions of people who only see the surface of your life. When others evaluate you, they measure what is visible. They look at your resume, your resources, your connections, your current results. They use human reasoning to estimate how far you can go. And sometimes you accept those estimates as truth. You internalize their limitations. You begin to speak about yourself in small language. You begin to dream in safe sizes. You begin to pray cautious prayers because you do not want to be disappointed again. Yet destiny is not a product of cautious thinking. It is not reduced to probability. What is written about your life is not confined to the expectations of your environment. There are chapters ahead that no one around you can predict. There are doors prepared that do not match your present qualification. There are alignments forming that will not make sense until they unfold. Human expectation says, this is as far as you can go. Destiny says, you have not even begun. Human expectation says, you come from a small place. Destiny says, your influence will exceed your origin. Human expectation says, you tried before and failed. Destiny says, that failure was preparation. One of the greatest obstacles to stepping into destiny is agreement with low expectation. If you constantly rehearse your limitations, you unconsciously resist your expansion. If you define yourself by what has not worked, you blind yourself to what is being prepared. Destiny requires a willingness to believe beyond evidence. It asks you to trust that what is written about you is larger than what you currently see. There are moments when life contradicts promise. You feel stuck. You feel delayed. You feel like others are advancing while you remain in the same place. In those seasons, human expectation grows louder. It whispers that maybe this is all there is. Maybe the dream was too ambitious. Maybe you misunderstood your callings. But destiny is not erased by delay. It is not cancelled by difficulty. It is not destroyed by opposition. What is written beyond expectation often unfolds through unexpected paths. Sometimes you are redirected away from what you thought was your opportunity, only to discover something greater waiting in another direction. Sometimes rejection becomes redirection. Sometimes loss becomes liberation. You may not recognize destiny while it is developing because it rarely arrives in the package you imagined. There is also a refining process. Destiny is large, and large assignments require large character. The pressure you experience may not be punishment, it may be preparation. The waiting season may not be denial, it may be development. If destiny were handed to you prematurely, without maturity, it could overwhelm you. So there are seasons where your capacity is being expanded quietly. Human expectation depends on visible patterns. Destiny operates on invisible design. You may look at your current bank account and expect struggle. You may look at your current health and expect limitation. You may look at your social circle and expect confinement. But what is written about you is not confined to what is visible. It includes growth you have not imagined, strength you have not yet tapped into, influence you have not yet realized. Sometimes destiny shocks even you. It takes you into spaces you never thought you would enter. It gives you responsibilities you once thought were beyond your reach. It causes you to speak with authority in areas where you once felt insecure. And when those moments happen, you will look back and realize that your earlier expectations were far too small. The danger is settling. Settling happens when you accept a life smaller than what is written. It happens when comfort becomes more attractive than calling. It requires stepping beyond familiar territory. It requires believing that your life carries more weight than your current circumstances suggest. You may not fully understand what is written about you. You may only sense it as a restlessness, a deep knowing that there is more. That feeling is not arrogance. It is awareness. It is the inner recognition that your present environment cannot contain your future impact. It is the whisper that tells you not to give up. Even when logic suggests you should, When destiny is beyond human expectation, it also means it cannot be blocked permanently by human opposition. People may misunderstand you. They may doubt you. They may try to limit you based on their perceptions. But what is written does not depend on their approval. It unfolds according to a higher design. This does not mean the journey will be easy. In fact, the greater the destiny, the greater the resistance. But resistance is not proof of impossibility. Often it is proof of significance. If your life were meant to remain small, there would be no need for intense opposition. The tension you feel may be evidence that something valuable is being guarded. You must learn to separate present reality from ultimate destiny. Present reality may be modest. It may be fragile. It may be uncertain. But destiny is not fragile. It is not uncertain. It is anchored beyond the limitations of your current view. When you align your faith with what is written rather than with what is visible, you begin to live differently. You stop shrinking yourself. You stop apologizing for your vision. You stop negotiating with fear. There are breakthroughs ahead that do not fit your current calculations. There are expansions that will stretch your imaginations. There are moments coming that will force you to redefine what you believed was possible for your life. And when they arrive, you will realize that what was written about you was never small, never ordinary, never confined to the expectations that once tried to define you, because destiny was always designed to exceed what human reasoning could predict and to reveal a future far greater than the limits you once accepted as permanent. Boundaries. Logic is a powerful tool. It helps us calculate, analyze, and make decisions based on evidence. It protects us from unnecessary risks and guides us through practical matters. But logic has boundaries. It can only operate within the information available to it. It depends on past experience, visible data, and measurable probabilities. When logic reaches the edge of what it can understand, it stops. It says, "This is impossible." It says, "This cannot happen." It says, "There is no way forward," and many people build their entire lives within those boundaries. Faith begins where logic ends. Faith does not deny reality, but it refuses to be imprisoned by it. It sees the same circumstances, the same limitations, the same obstacles, yet it interprets them differently. Where logic sees finality, faith sees possibility. Where logic sees a closed door, faith senses a hidden entrance. Faith is not ignorance of facts, it is confidence in a dimension beyond the facts. When you face a challenge that has no visible solutions, logic quickly calculates the outcome. It measures your resources, your connections, your skills, and your history. If the numbers do not align, logic declares defeat. But faith does not calculate the same way. Faith believes that there are unseen variables, invisible alignments, and unexpected interventions that logic cannot measure. Many of the greatest breakthroughs in life begin with a decision that logic would discourage. Starting again after failure, forgiving someone who does not deserve it, continuing to hope after repeated disappointment, giving generously when resources are limited, speaking boldly when insecurity whispers silence. Logic may say these actions are irrational. Faith understands that these actions activate something greater. Faith is not reckless optimism. It is a deliberate choice to trust beyond visible proof. It requires courage because it often moves before confirmation appears. When you choose faith, you step into uncertainty with expectations. You do not have a detailed map, but you have conviction. You do not have guarantees, but you have assurance. In moments of crisis, logic tends to magnify the problem. It repeats statistics. It replays past failures. It forecasts negative outcomes. Faith, however, magnifies possibility. It remembers previous deliverance. It anticipates unexpected favor. It speaks future victory while standing in present struggle. There are seasons in life where nothing makes sense. You may do everything correctly and still face delays. You may prepare thoroughly and still encounter rejection. You may work diligently and still experience loss. Logic will attempt to explain everything through cause and effect. But some moments cannot be explained through simple equations. They require faith to sustain you when understanding is incomplete. Faith activates what logic cannot explain because it aligns your heart with a higher dimension of reality. When you act in faith, you open yourself to outcomes that exceed natural prediction. You position yourself for opportunities that logic would have avoided. You speak words that shape your internal atmosphere differently from fear-driven reasoning. Consider how often fear disguises itself as logic. Fear presents detailed arguments. It sounds reasonable. It lists all the risks and all the potential failures. It persuades you to stay small, to remain comfortable, to avoid disappointment. But beneath its rational tone, fear is simply protecting you from vulnerability. Faith, on the other hand, invites vulnerability because it trusts that beyond risk lies reward. There is a tension between logic and faith. Logic demands evidence before movement. Faith often moves before evidence appears. Logic says, "Show me first, then I will believe." Faith says, "I believe, and therefore I move." This movement does not always make sense to observers. People may question your decisions. They may say you are unrealistic. But many of the most meaningful transformations in life happen when someone chooses faith over predictable reasoning. Faith also changes how you see yourself. Logic may evaluate your past mistakes and conclude that you are not qualified. It may compare you with others and highlight your weaknesses. Faith, however, sees potential that has not yet been expressed. It believes that growth is possible, that change is attainable, that redemption is real. When you activate faith, your language shifts. You stop speaking in final statements about failure. You stop defining yourself by temporary setbacks. You begin to declare hope even when evidence is thin. You begin to act with expectation even when results are not immediate. This internal shift influences your decisions, your energy, and your persistence. There are miracles in life that cannot be traced back to pure logic. Opportunities appear unexpectedly. Help arrives at the right moment. Strength rises when exhaustion should have prevailed. Doors open that seem permanently sealed. Logic struggles to explain these events because it cannot account for the unseen dimension that faith engages. Faith does not ignore preparation. It does not reject wisdom. It does not abandon responsibility. Instead, it complements them. You prepare diligently, but you trust beyond your preparation. You plan carefully, but you remain open to surprises. You work faithfully, but you believe that results are not limited to your effort alone. In difficult seasons, faith becomes your anchor. When logic cannot predict a positive outcome, faith sustains your endurance. It reminds you that current reality is not the final chapter. It whispers that what you see is not all that exists. It strengthens you to continue even when the path is unclear. There will be moments when you stand at the edge of what is comfortable. Logic will urge caution. It will replay every potential failure. But faith will invite you forward. It will remind you of previous victories. It will stir courage within you. And when you take that step, even trembling, something shifts. You move from confinement into possibility. Faith activates doors that logic would never approach. It creates space for transformation that calculation alone cannot produce. It allows you to live beyond the boundaries of predictable outcomes. And while logic remains valuable for navigation, it is faith that propels you into realms where explanation is insufficient, where breakthroughs defy statistics, and where the most extraordinary moments of your life unfold in ways that reason alone could never fully justify or comprehend. Most people design their lives around predictability. They create plans, set timelines, establish goals, and imagine a straight path from where they are to where they want to be. There is comfort in structure. There is security in routine. When everything follows a clear sequence, the mind feels in control. But life rarely unfolds in straight lines. There are moments when something unexpected disrupts the flow. A sudden opportunity appears. A door closes without warning. A crisis emerges. A conversation shifts everything. These interruptions often feel inconvenient at first, even painful. Yet what seems like disruption can be divine redirection. Human direction is usually built on limited perspective. You choose based on what you know now, based on what seems logical, profitable, or safe. You move forward with partial understandings, unaware of hidden dangers or greater possibilities ahead. Then comes an interruption. Your plan is delayed. Your expectation collapses. Your carefully constructed path dissolves. In that moment, frustration rises. You ask why. You question fairness. You feel disoriented. But sometimes the interruption is protection. Sometimes it is promotion. Sometimes it is preparation for something your original path could never have delivered. Divine interruption does not always arrive gently. It can shake your comfort. It can challenge your identity. It can force you to release what you thought was permanent. You may lose a position you relied on. You may outgrow relationships you once depended on. You may be pushed into unfamiliar territory without feeling ready. But interruption is not always destruction. It is often transformation disguised as inconvenience. When your direction is purely human, it is limited to your imagination. You plan within the boundaries of what you think is possible. You dream according to your current exposure. But when interruption comes, it introduces you to dimensions you did not consider. It expands your awareness. It shifts your focus. It compels you to reevaluate what truly matters. There are people who look back at their lives and realize that the moments they resisted the most were the very moments that saved them. A rejected application redirected them toward a greater opportunity. A broken relationship prevented deeper damage. A delayed promotion forced them to develop skills they would later need. At the time, those moments felt like setbacks. In hindsight, they were strategic shifts. Divine interruption often exposes attachments. It reveals where your security truly lies. When something you depended on is removed, you discover whether your confidence was anchored in position, income, approval, or something deeper. This exposure is uncomfortable, but it is clarifying. It removes illusions and reveals foundations. There is also a timing element in interruption. Sometimes you are moving too quickly toward something that would overwhelm you. Sometimes you are settling for something beneath your capacity. An interruption slows you down or redirects you upwards. It recalibrates your journey to align with a larger purpose. Human direction tends to prioritize immediate results. It seeks quick progress and visible success. But divine redirection often prioritizes long-term impact. It may take you through hidden seasons of growth before public recognition. It may remove you from visibility to develop character in privacy. It may challenge your patience to strengthen your endurance. When interruption occurs, your response determines whether it becomes growth or bitterness. If you resist blindly, you may remain stuck in regret. If you interpret every disruption as punishment, you may lose hope. But if you remain open to the possibility that interruption carries meaning, your perspective changes. You begin to ask different questions. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this preparing me for?" There is humility in accepting interruption. It requires acknowledging that your understanding is incomplete. It demands trust beyond your current comprehension. It invites you to surrender, control, and believe that there is wisdom beyond your immediate perception. Divine interruption also breaks stagnation. Sometimes you become comfortable in a space that no longer challenges you. You grow accustomed to routines that limit expansion. Without disruption, you might remain in that space for years. Interruption forces movement. It compels adaptation. It stretches your abilities. What you once saw as stability may have been confinement. Not every interruption is dramatic. Some are subtle. A chance meeting leads to a new direction. An unexpected idea shifts your focus. A small decision changes your trajectory. These quiet interruptions can alter your entire future. They may seem insignificant at first, but over time they reveal their impact. The challenge is recognizing that interruption is not always opposition. It can be invitation. It can be course correction. It can be divine strategy guiding you toward a destination greater than the one you planned. Your disappointment may be the doorway to a larger calling. Your frustration may be the beginning of alignment. When your direction changes suddenly, fear often arises. You worry about uncertainty. You question your stability. But growth rarely happens without discomfort. The path you originally designed may have been safe, but safety is not always synonymous with purpose. Sometimes you are interrupted because you were aiming too low. In the midst of interruptions, clarity may not come immediately. There may be confusion. There may be silence. There may be waiting. But over time, patterns emerge. You begin to see connections you missed. You recognize how closed doors positioned you for better ones. You realize that what you thought was an ending was actually a turning point. Divine interruption does not erase your effort. It refines it. It does not invalidate your vision. It elevates it. It takes your limited direction and aligns it with a broader design. You may not see the full picture while the shift is happening, but you can trust that the redirection carries intentions. Your life is not defined only by your plans, but by the moments that reshape them. The unexpected detours, the sudden changes, the disruptions you did not choose, these often become the most defining chapters. They redirect your path, expand your understandings, and guide you toward a destiny that could not have been reached through your original human direction alone. Because sometimes the greatest progress comes not from following your own carefully drawn map, but from allowing a higher wisdom to interrupt, redirect, and reposition you into a future you never could have constructed by yourself. Most people evaluate themselves based on visible performance. They measure their worth by achievements, titles, income, recognition, or comparison with others. If the results are small, they assume their capacity is small. If progress is slow, they assume their ability is limited. In this way, many live far below what they were designed to become. They mistake current expressions for ultimate potential. But hidden potential is not determined by what is visible today. It exists beyond present performance, beyond public acknowledgement, and beyond personal awareness. There is more within you than you have expressed. There are abilities you have not yet discovered. There is strength you have not yet needed to use. There is wisdom that will only surface under certain pressures. Just because something has not appeared does not mean it does not exist. A seed carries an entire tree within it, even when it looks small and insignificant. The fullness is hidden, but it is real. Often, the spiritual dimension recognizes capacity before the individual does. There are assignments, opportunities, and responsibilities that align with a future version of you, not the current version you see in the mirror. You may feel unqualified. You may feel unprepared. You may question whether you are capable. Yet what is hidden within you is already acknowledged. Beyond what you understand, hidden potential is frequently buried under insecurity. You compare yourself with others who seem more talented or more advanced. You see their visible success and assume they possess something you lack. But comparison blinds you to your unique design. Your potential may not look like theirs. It may express itself differently. It may develop in another direction, but it is no less significant. Sometimes hidden potential remains dormant because it has not yet been challenged. Comfort does not reveal capacity, pressure does. When you face adversity, something rises from within that surprises even you. Courage appears in moments of fear. Creativity emerges in moments of limitation. Leadership surfaces in moments of crisis. These qualities were always present, but they remained concealed until circumstances demanded their activation. There are seasons when you feel overlooked or underestimated. People may not recognize your value. They may not see your depth. They may label you according to your current position. But being underestimated is not the same as being incapable. Hidden potential does not depend on public validation. It grows quietly, often in obscurity, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. The process of uncovering potential is rarely comfortable. It involves stretching beyond familiarity. It requires stepping into situations that expose weakness and demand growth. It means accepting responsibilities that feel slightly beyond your confidence. In those moments, you may doubt yourself. You may fear failure. But the discomfort is often the signal that hidden capacity is being drawn out. There is also a timing element to potential. Not everything emerges at once. Some abilities develop gradually. Some strengths mature over years of experience. You may feel impatient, wanting immediate manifestation of your dreams. But premature exposure can damage fragile growth. Hidden potential needs refinement. It needs discipline. It needs character to support it. The spiritual realm does not define you by your current output. It sees the full design. It sees what you can become when aligned, disciplined, and courageous. It sees the leader within the follower, the teacher within the student, the innovator within the employee. It recognizes the future influence that is invisible today. One of the greatest tragedies is when a person never believes in their hidden potential. When doubt dominates belief, potential remains buried. When fear controls decisions, opportunities are avoided. When insecurity dictates behavior, growth is limited. You may never fully know what you are capable of if you continually shrink yourself to fit comfortable expectations. Hidden potential is often revealed through service and responsibility. When you step forward to help, to lead, to create, you discover dimensions of yourself that were previously unnoticed. Action unlocks awareness. Movement reveals strengths. Waiting passively for confidence to appear rarely works. Confidence often follows obedience to opportunities. It is important to understand that hidden potential is not about ego. It is not about superiority or comparison. It is about purpose. Your potential is connected to impact. It exists so that you can contribute meaningfully, so that you can influence positively, so that you can fulfill assignments that align with your design. When you suppress your potential, the loss is not only personal, it affects those who were meant to benefit from your expression. There will be moments when you feel stretched beyond comfort. You may be placed in positions that require more wisdom than you think you have. You may face decisions that demand courage you have not yet demonstrated. In those moments, you are being introduced to hidden strengths. What feels overwhelming may actually be evidence that you are stepping into deeper capacity. Sometimes others see your potential before you do. They may encourage you toward roles you feel unready for. They may speak belief into areas where you feel insecure. Do not dismiss these voices too quickly. They may be recognizing something you have not yet embraced. Hidden potential also requires stewardship. It must be cultivated through discipline, learning, and humility. Capacity without character can collapse under pressure. Talent without integrity can self-destruct. Growth without grounding can become unstable. The unveiling of potential must be supported by maturity. There is comfort in knowing that your current limitations do not define your final identity. You are not confined to what you have already demonstrated. You are not restricted to past performance. Within you are layers of ability waiting to surface. Within you are ideas that have not yet been formed into actions. Within you is resilience that has not yet been tested. When you begin to believe that hidden potential is known and acknowledged beyond your awareness, your perspective changes. You stop labeling yourself prematurely. You stop concluding that this is all you will ever be. You become open to growth. You become willing to take risks aligned with purpose. You become patient with the process of development. The future version of you is already recognized in a dimension beyond your present understanding. The gifts you have not yet used are not invisible. The influence you have not yet exercised is not forgotten. What is hidden now is not absent. It is simply awaiting alignment, courage, and the right moment to emerge into visible reality, where the depth that was once unseen becomes undeniable evidence of a design that always existed beyond your immediate perceptions. Human perception is deeply influenced by what can be seen, measured, and immediately verified. When circumstances appear unfavorable, the natural reaction is to assume that progress has stopped. When resources seem limited, we conclude that possibility is limited. When opposition increases, we interpret it as defeat. Visible conditions become the lens through which we judge reality. Yet what is visible is only a fraction of what is actually happening. There are movements beneath the surface, alignments behind the scenes, and preparations unfolding in dimensions that the human eye cannot access. When you focus only on visible circumstances, your emotions rise and fall with external changes. If things improve, hope increases. If challenges intensify, discouragement grows. Your stability becomes tied to fluctuating conditions. But when you understand that God works beyond what you can see, your foundation shifts. You begin to trust that unseen activity is taking place even when external evidence appears stagnant. There are seasons in life when nothing outwardly changes. You pray, but the situation looks the same. You work hard, but recognition does not come. You believe, but results seem delayed. In these moments, it is easy to assume that nothing is happening. Yet visible stillness does not equal invisible inactivity. Just because you cannot trace movement does not mean movement has stopped. Consider how growth often occurs silently. Roots develop underground before any visible sign appears above the soil. The most critical formation happens out of sight. In the same way, circumstances may look unchanged while deeper transformation is underway. Character is being strengthened. Timing is being arranged. People are being positioned. Doors are being prepared. These processes rarely announce themselves. Visible circumstances often test trust. They confront you with questions. Will you believe only what you see, or will you trust beyond sight? When everything aligns with your desire, faith feels easy. But when the external picture contradicts your hope, faith becomes refined. It matures beyond emotions. It becomes anchored in conviction rather than evidence. There are moments when setbacks appear final. A contract falls through, a relationship ends, an opportunity disappears. From a visible standpoint, it may look like loss, but what appears as loss can be protection from unseen consequences. What appears as delay can be alignment with better timings. What appears as rejection can be redirection towards something greater. God's work is not confined to what is publicly observable. While you focus on one closed door, another may be opening in a direction you have not considered. While you worry about immediate lacks, provision may be forming through channels you do not yet recognize. While you struggle with uncertainties, Clarity may be developing gradually through circumstances that seem unrelated. The challenge is that visible circumstances speak loudly. They demand attention. They stir fear. They trigger doubt. It takes intentional discipline to remember that what you see is not the full story. It requires humility to admit that your understanding is limited. It requires patience to wait for unseen processes to unfold. Sometimes what you see is deliberately misleading. A season of obscurity may appear insignificant, yet it can be a period of intense preparation. A time of isolation may feel lonely, yet it can create focus and refinement. A phase of reduction may seem like regression, yet it can simplify your life to make room for expansion. When you base your confidence solely on visible circumstances, you become reactive. You celebrate prematurely and despair unnecessarily. But when you anchor your trust beyond the visible, you develop stability. You learn to remain steady in both increase and decrease. You recognize that external shifts do not determine ultimate outcomes. There is also comfort in knowing that you are not responsible for controlling every variable. Visible circumstances may feel overwhelming because they appear to demand immediate solutions. But unseen work often involves coordination beyond your effort. Not every breakthrough depends solely on your strengths. Not every delay is caused by your failure. Some processes require alignment of factors beyond your awareness. You may not see the full picture now, you may only see fragments. But fragments do not define the whole. A single chapter does not determine the entire story. What you perceive as a problem may be a piece of a larger solution. What you interpret as stagnation may be strategic stillness. Trusting beyond visible circumstances does not mean ignoring realities. It means interpreting reality through a broader perspective. You acknowledge challenges without allowing them to dictate your hopes. You face obstacles without surrendering expectation. You act responsibly while recognizing that ultimate outcomes are not limited to your immediate environment.